So welcome back to the Everything Real Estate Show with David Angione. Again, we have Ryan, and we're talking about what you can do to get your home prepared to sell as far as like home inspection and you kind of doing your own little walkthrough. So, Ryan, we've talked about GFCIs. We've talked about the attic. We kind of, when we left, we were still there. So let's go from the attic and come on down.
Yeah, well, one last thing I'd like to touch on in the attic is insulation. So now, especially with it being wintertime now, if you are the house that has giant icicles growing, not just forming on the outside of your roof and off your gutters, you might have an insulation problem. There could be a lack of insulation in certain spots that's causing that snow to melt on your roof and those icicles form, and that leads to ice damming and potential, moisture intrusion problems because of all the melting and stuff like that. So real quick, when you're up there, making sure those bathroom vents are being not discharged up there and there's no mold, check the insulation, make sure it's not batted down, make sure it covers the whole space.
I know one thing that I've noticed in my house, it has some vents on the side of the house that had screen in them. That screen is gone. And I just noticed that the other day. Also, they were able to, in my back side of my garage, I have another garage door that had a gap in there. And I noticed that there were these tiny little paw prints that looked like a raccoon that had been going up the side. And so I believe that there's something, at least was living in my attic. And this is a good time for them to come in, and they can cause a lot of damage up there. And they might even have babies up there, and then they claim that as their own.
Rodents love attics because, as we touched on here, when's the last time you've been up there? No, never. So it's quiet, it's warm, it's better than being outside. So if there's any gaps on the outside that you can seal up with the fencing, like you said, the fencing was removed on the probably your gable vent you're talking about, and then get those gaps sealed up. So lately I have run into, I'll take a picture of mouse droppings in the attic, and that freaks a lot of people out. But 9 times out of 10, there's some kind of gap for them to get into, and like I said, it's quiet up there. They like to live there, so get those gaps sealed up, and you don't have to worry about the rodent problems.
Yeah, and there's enough trouble with just mice, but when you get the squirrels and the raccoons and stuff like that coming up in there, you've got some major problems.
Yeah.
And I noticed that I have a dog, and when I'm sleeping, she'll start barking, and I think she doesn't do it so much anymore because I've sealed up most of those places. But I'm thinking that's probably what she was hearing, was them prancing across the attic.
Sure.
So she was making that noise, and she wakes me up at 2:30 in the morning, so that's another reason to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. So we already touched on GFCIs in the main living space. Really, there's not that much else to go on in the living space. I mean, if you making sure your windows and doors are all working and make sure they're all aligned right so they're operating properly, all the hardware and stuff's there. It's not that expensive if you're missing window hardware or door hardware or your doors aren't shutting just to fix that stuff. So buyers are concerned with cosmetic things more than anything else. That's the stuff that they know about. So if you can fix those cosmetic things, that's just making your house more appealing. We can get into the bathrooms and like the sinks and stuff in the kitchen. Take a look at your trap. I don't know if you had leaks in the past or had work or did some DIY, or your traps underneath your sink should look like the letter P, not the letter S. And that's just to make sure that those are venting properly, and you don't want the sewer gases coming up. And if you have it looking like an S, then the sewer gases can backdraft, and that's why you can have some stinky smells coming out of those sinks and stuff. But take a look at those pipes underneath your sink. Pull the back off your shower. You're looking for, if you find a leak on your own and are able to get rid of it, it's going to be a lot cheaper than if you have to get a licensed plumber come out and do it during the home inspection process and during the part where you think you're ready to move out, and now you got all these obstacles. So get those leaks fixed up. Look for corrosion. So a lot of times dissimilar metals where they connect that causes corrosion, and over time it gets worse and worse, and that's where things start to leak at. So anytime the handle part is usually a different kind of metal than the copper piping, so that's usually where it comes. Check that corrosion, get stuff replaced as you need, and make sure there's no leaks and stuff.
And those types of things they're very simple, but what I think that says to a potential buyer is if you see that corrosion or that says this house may not have been very well maintained.
Sure. If you clean this stuff up, I mean, that's just showing, okay, this person cared for this house. I don't really have anything hidden to worry about.
Right. And that makes a big difference. It sends up a big red flag. I was in a home the other day. The people never used the bathroom on the first floor for whatever reason. They preferred to shower downstairs. They turned the water on, and it was brown. It really threw up some red flags with my buyers. Not something that you would think about, but it's just, it was there. They never used it. It ran slow, and the water was brown, and that made them question a whole heck of a lot. Was why? Well, we were able to dig in and find out they never used it, so I'm not sure why the water was brown. It was clear throughout the rest of the house, but that must have just been laying there.
Just from sitting in the pipes, yeah, just rust and just from sitting there. Another thing with if you don't use bathrooms and stuff, you should at least go down there and run some water every now and then. The bathroom, maybe in the basement that doesn't get used that much. Run water down in those basements if you're not using them that much, because those traps can dry out too and just cause odors to come out. So get some fresh water down there, flush those toilets, and get them working.
Another thing that I know we noticed, Ryan, was in the house, and it was a newer home. A lot of the receptacles were loose in the wall.
Yeah, and that's just something simple that can be fixed, tightening a screw or getting those secured to the wall.
Right, and so you're going to get an appraiser come in there, and they may or may not catch it. It may or may not be a big thing, but it could be a safety issue. So those are things that you can just touching it is going to tell you whether or not it's
sure. Take a small lamp around and plug everything in. Make sure those outlets are working, and they're not. You'll see if they're loose if you plug something in and unplug it.
So that's an easy thing. And again, it throws up red flags when they're doing that. Especially if you're going to have the appraiser coming in there, FHA appraiser or whatever. They're looking at that and they're thinking, okay, here's a problem. So, and you can buy that little tester really cheap as well. But a lamp will do the same thing. So.
Yeah, you just want to make sure it has power and make sure they're secured. Let's get down into the basement. That's where all our major mechanicals are. That's where the big ticket items are. So I think personally, if I was going to sell my house, I'm going to get an HVAC person out early and get him to certify everything.
HVAC meaning?
HVAC. So what does it stand for? Heating and
cooling
guy.
Right.
Yeah, I don't even know. The vacuum. What's the V mean?
I don't know. But,
get a heating and cooling guy out to look at your AC unit, look at your furnace, certify them, make sure everything's running as good as it's supposed to be. I mean, what better than as a prospective buyer to come in and see verification from legitimate companies sitting there that's saying, look, this was just serviced, everything's running as great as it should be. Especially if you have an older furnace that, is in that maybe even 10-year range, you're like, oh, the furnace could kind of be older. What if it's going to have problems? Is it going to cost me $5,000 or $6,000 to replace this furnace? If you get it certified and have that kind of documentation laying around with your disclosures and everything, that'd be a good selling point as well.
And again, it just shows that you're proactive, and it's going to benefit you. You're going to spend a couple $100, $300 or something like that for a home inspection, a pre-home inspection, pre-sale home inspection, but you're kind of foregoing any potential problems that you might have with a buyer because they get scared or whatever, because you've done your best to look at everything and just put it into a proper perspective and take care of it. And I've seen that happen several times during a home inspection where they find something and it leads to can lead to a much more expensive fix, or someone walking away from the sale of your home, and then now you have and I'm going to use the word stigmatized because I don't know what else to put in there, but it's they want to know, why was this home on the market and back? And you have to tell them, well, they found this in the home inspection. Sometimes it will be lending or whatever, but if you have to say it was in the home inspection, that just throws up red flags. So we don't want to do that. But so moving along in the basement.
Yeah, I just feel like that the pre-sale home inspection is underutilized. It's a great tool for you as the seller, and just a great piece of marketing that can be sitting on your counter as people go through. You being able to see. I feel like in most transactions, the seller does not have a whole lot of control of what goes on. So real estate agents are coming in with their buyers, and at that point, the buyer seems to have most of the control. Right. They're getting their home inspector to come through and all their people to come through and examine your house, where if you paid the small fee for a home inspection and had all the items taken care of and fixed on your own, it is going to be cheaper than them having their home inspector come in, find one of these bigger problems that we're talking about, and you having to remedy. So if you'd have found mold in your attic and been able to take care of it, you're going to be better off than them finding mold and then making you take care of it, or taking $5,000 or $10,000 off the price of the home that you thought you were getting or selling it for. So I think in the long run, you will save money doing your due diligence and getting the inspection done on your own behalf.
Plus, it goes back to speaking that I cared enough to take care of this, and I want to make sure that my home is in good condition.
And that buyer sees that home inspection report sitting on your counter. They see everything that's been found, things that have been taken care of, and even the things that you left and haven't taken care of. Maybe at that point they go ahead and forego the home inspection. They just go with the home inspection that you got, and then that process, now that part of the process has already been taken care of. You had it taken care of, and it's just going to speed up that closing process for you instead of waiting for them to have all the contingencies of their own home inspection.
Right, and they may or may not, and they have the right to have their own home inspection, but you can go in there with the confidence knowing that everything that was pointed out you've taken care of or you're aware of, and it's not going to be a surprise to you. And that's the last thing that you need, is to have any surprises. So,
last couple things in the basement, taking a look at your electric panel. One of the biggest things in the electric panel is if you have an old Federal Pacific style electric panel. Those are something that are most likely going to turn up on every inspection, and they're going to want you to replace those panels with a newer style panel. There's just a lot of literature and lawsuits with those Federal Pacific panels that have brought back as making those really fire hazardous and just something to get rid of and have replaced. And then, leaks and stuff in the basement from everything up above. Again, same thing as we talked about in the bathrooms and kitchens. Get those taken care of.
So, Ryan, thank you for being here with us. We're out of time for today. This has been very informative. I've learned a lot today. I hope you have learned some stuff. Again, if you have questions for myself, for Stephanie, who is another sponsor of the show with eMortgage, and Ryan here, you can email myself at david@davidangione.com. Angione is spelled Angione. And Ryan, give us your contact information.
Yeah, you can email me at ryan@firstinohio.com, or you can check out our website at firstinhomeinspection.com.
So again, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week, and have a great day.